Well, welcome in everybody in this new adventure that I'm going to be taking you on. My name is Dr. Matthew X. Joseph, and I am the proud CEO of X Factor EDU. And this was an amazing week. We just launched our first book called Stronger Together, and our publishing company is off and running. And one of the things that I have prided myself in, and especially in this book, is bringing people together. And this podcast, video podcast, is going to be highlighting stories from the field. We're coming together, and being stronger together is paramount to their work. And I am so thrilled today as we look at who could be our first guest here today. And as we look through the possible candidates, I'm thrilled to have Sonny Thadani here, who is the CEO and co-founder of Robin. He's going to come and share his story, his work, and the work of Robin in supporting students, families, schools, and bringing them together and be stronger together. So I'm going to bring Sonny in right now and get started. So Sonny, welcome. You're the first guest.
Well, thank you. You know, I really fully didn't appreciate that I was the first guest. So thank you for the honor and opportunity.
Sure. I want to leave that out there. Like, yeah, this is it. We're starting something new. And from reading the work that you've done, you kind of did a little bit of shift and started some new things as well. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Robin, because I know there's a real inspirational story about starting something with you as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. And again, I guess we get to set the tone together. So hopefully I can help you out with that. And congrats to you for launching certainly your book and everything going on in your world. But you know, for me, it starts with who I am. I'm a 41-year-old father of 3 young ones with an amazing wife here in New York City. I have a first grader daughter, Sonia, a little guy who just turned 3 in Bodie, and a 5-month-old in Cal. So I have a girl and 2 boys. And boy, is my life hectic.
You think so? You think?
Just a little bit. And talking about Stronger Together, boy, do I need my whole ecosystem with me right now. Forget Robin and the company, just to manage my life. But all is well here. I've been living in New York City for the last 2 decades, ever since I graduated. And as you mentioned, I recently, over the past kind of 2 years, I mean, I think a lot of things have changed with a lot of people, with COVID and everything else. But with me, a couple months before COVID, I made the decision to leave the first company I helped build. And it was really tough for me to do that because I built it alongside my best friends. And we had this amazing community and this wonderful opportunity. But I also was at the point in my life where I was ready to do something else. I wasn't sure what, but over the past couple of years, a lot of things were happening. One, I became a dad. I got married. I became a dad. And I thought about life in a different way. And about six years ago, right after Sonia was born, I met this gentleman, Mark Barden. I didn't know who he was at the time. I met him at a fundraiser event through some friends. And he's one of the dads who started the organization called Sandy Hook Promise. And for those that don't know much about SHP, it unfortunately was born out of one of the shooting incidences at a school here on the East Coast in Newtown, Connecticut. Mark and his wife and his family lost their son. And I remember hearing in the news and reading about it and all the events that have taken place before and certainly after. But it really wasn't until I met Mark and understood about the work he was doing at Sandy Hook that it really hit me. It hit me once as a new dad to say, I'm holding this newborn. And I'm like, how could someone take her away from me? I didn't understand it, right? I was in that moment holding a baby, and here he was. I think his son was maybe 5, 6 at the time, and his son was taken away from him. And I said, how do I help? How do I give to this organization? How do I volunteer? How do I learn? And he said, Sonny, one thing that I want people to know, and they talk about gun policy or gun advocacy, but they really talk about mental health and supporting school communities. And I didn't know that. Right. I heard the name and I thought this is what it was meant. And it really got me thinking a lot more about what that means and what mental health really is, because I didn't really understand it at the time. And over the past couple of years, I had a family member in my family, in my wife's family, that were going through some mental health challenges. And again, I didn't understand it, maybe because I didn't want to, or maybe just because it was just so new. And I grew up in a world where, you didn't talk about your feelings as much. It was
no,
you know,
especially as young men growing up, it's be a man, like you got to be tough. But no, it totally resonates. I get that.
and learning about it over the last couple of years, you know, at the very young age of 37, I started and happened to have the opportunity to work with a coach. Now, through my prior company, I worked with an executive coach, a speaking coach, but this time I worked with somebody different. He was labeled a life coach, and a friend and a mentor of mine recommended that I start talking to someone. And you know, he put a few names out there, but he said, go find someone that works with you, or you know, that really gels with you. And I found this guy, Coach Cam, and it was unbelievable. I started learning more about myself. I started learning about what my goals, what my mission, where I fell short, both personally and professionally. And it was fascinating. It really changed the way I look at my own relationships to my wife, my children, my friends, my colleagues. And it really helped me battle the adversity that I was going through at that time. And at that time, later in life, I mentioned kids. You know, I had my first son and my first daughter, first child, and then we wanted number two. And number two didn't happen so easily, as life happens. And it was really, really tough on our family. And I didn't really have the skill sets to deal with it. And I started learning about how do you be resilient? How do you be more aware of certain things? And that's when this kind of aha moment said, wait a minute, when I was 14 and every girl said no, I didn't make varsity anything. And my parents got divorced all during that high school time. I wish I had Coach Cam. I wish I had skill sets. And I'm thinking now that our kids, again, my kids are too young, but our kids are going through something way different than I think what we went through as kids. On top of everything we went through, they have social media, they have technology, they have different pressure. I mean, I was talking to a cousin of mine. To get into college today, I don't know. It's pretty easy when I went to when I applied. You just learned the education you went.
Right. It's now such a process, and it's amazing
a different
to see.
World.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, these kids, and I have family members and friends of friends of friends, little brothers and sisters. They're not happy in school, and they don't know what to do. And you know, everybody blames social media. I think that's just one part of what's going on in the world we live in. And I started talking about, all right, mental health and education. And I was talking to an old friend of mine who happened to be an investor in my first company. And he said, you got to talk to this guy named Scott Farber. I said, oh, who's Scott? Scott was his one of his college roommates. And he said, Scott's been in education and mental health his whole life. And you should really pick his brain. So as many conversations go, you have a Zoom call, you have a cup of coffee. Right. The heart of COVID last summer, we were both in New York City. We met on the West Side Highway with an iced coffee, and it felt like we were the only two people in New York at the time because everybody.
I was going to say maybe you were.
We might have been, and we sat there, and I told him, I said, Scott, I got this idea. What do you think? Because I don't know much about education. I certainly don't know much about mental health, but I do know there's something here. And as he discussed, he said, Sonny, not only is there something here, I've been thinking about this idea for the past 7 years and just haven't found the right person to do it with. And like many young businesses, it's a little bit of good luck and good timing. And here we are. We started in September and incorporated and went out. And for me, not being in education, and I'm going to pick your brain a little bit during this conversation, not having that understanding, what did I do? I listened, and you know what we call the voice of the customer. I went to teachers, administrators, parents, and students. I said, what's working? What's not? What do you want to learn about? What don't you? And what I heard was unbelievably fascinating to me as somebody, again, who doesn't come from that community. I heard from kids and adults that everything that they're doing in schools is reactive. God forbid there was an incident. I mean, God forbid a school shooting, but even a bullying incident, a fighting incident. They would bring somebody in, have office hours for a week or 2 or 3, and then it was kind of back to normal. Or they had talk about mental health for a minute with your phys ed teacher or with somebody, and there was no continuity or consistency in what schools were delivering. So this sort of light bulb went off. All right, let's offer something throughout the school year. And social emotional learning has been, around and available for, the last 10, 15, 20 years, well before Robin and many other great companies have been born. But I think for us, what I learned is technology is so amazing in so many ways. but it can't solve every problem, especially for social emotional learning and mental well-being. I know your first book was The Power of Connection. To me, it's human connection. And now more than ever, how do we incorporate human connection and technology to help our students, to help our school communities? And that's what Robin is. It's a blend of both, yes, using technology, using gamified solutions, using lesson plans, activities that you have to log into. But these coaches that come in virtually or in person is that connection again. And I think that's what a lot of programs and schools need right now is more connection. Parents to students, teachers to students, students with each other. And Robin comes in and we spark that conversation. We're not going to solve it day 1 or even day 30, but we're going to start it. And that's kind of the success we've seen is with the human element coupled with the technology.
Yeah, and it's so important. And I remember when Sandy Hook happened, I was a principal at the time. I've been a principal for 10 years before moving into central office and district administration and writing and different things. And just going through that as well. And this is a need. There's no quick fix. And having that opportunity to, you say it right on your website, spark the conversation is critical. And one of the things you said there was about, sometimes it takes a little luck. But I'm always someone that believes that you make your own luck, that you've put yourself in that position to be successful. And one of the things I liked and do like about Robin and I really, to be honest with you, just kind of learned about it recently, is that what you talked about with somebody coming in to speak or you meet with a phys ed teacher is schools have been very reactive to issues or problems. And what I like about Robin is it's proactive. And you're talking about it first, you're talking about it early. Can you share, because right on your website, it says your students' mental wellness matters. We're here to help. How are you proactive in that with your coaches and your team?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did, and we partnered with some great organizations, including Castle, sort of the gold standard in SEL, and the pillars that they talk about making decisions and being mindful and how to build resiliency. Well, we took that a step further and then asked students, well, what does this actually mean to you? We asked teachers because, mindfulness and resiliency and grit, right? Everybody talks about these words. They're a little bit of a buzzword. Well, what do they actually mean? So we started asking teachers and students, well, what do you actually want to learn about? Is it resiliency or mindfulness, or is it a step further? And this high school student, we did a focus group with some of our early content. We put these videos together, these asynchronous 1 to 3 minute lessons. And he said, Sonny, you guys should really rename this and think about approaching it differently. Kids don't want to click on Resiliency 101 or how to build resiliency.
No, not at all.
But they do, or they would click on or be interested in what to do when you have FOMO, or what to do when somebody dies, God forbid, in your family, or real life practical examples. And that's how we build resiliency. That's how we develop mindfulness. We have one of our coaches, Coach Naisha Williams. She talks about the trauma she faces as a young child, about being bullied, about being called names, about being called dark. And what's fascinating and why she's one of our most popular coaches and so good at what she does is she doesn't tell students, here's what to do when somebody bullies you, right? There are some great things you probably can learn. But what she does is she tells students what she did to find her inner voice, to find her confidence, to find her self-esteem. She happened to find theater, and there's a process she went through to find it. And I think students appreciate that because A, we're not telling them what to do, and B, we're developing skill sets, this preventative. You talked about not being reactive. Well, let's start in 5th or 6th grade. I mean, we have K through 12, but a lot of what we do is middle school and high school, because you're starting to develop these skill sets that inevitably at some point, something in your life is going to be a challenge, whatever that might be. Hopefully they're small challenges. It could be just having a low grade on a test, right? And how to deal with that. And a lot of kids today, they get a B, they get a C, they freak out and they don't know what to do. Well, there are things you can do. One of our coaches talks about thought traps, how to not get in your own head and say, wait a minute, I have a chance to do it over. Or one test only counts for 5% of what my grade might be. So I think we hear real life, we take real life examples from kids and we craft the content around that. Same thing with teachers. right? Teachers are so sick of certain things. They're zoomed out. They're frustrated. They're overworked. Well, what do they want to hear? They want to hear about, honestly, something for themselves. Instead of PD and PD for them, how to teach the students, how about self-care for themselves? How about a day or an hour or a thought? And a lot of schools are doing this through Robin, is coaching for teachers, right? They want that something for themselves. We were recently at a conference and we were giving away some stuff. We gave a free coaching session. And this counselor came up to us and just so genuine and so authentic said, Sonny, do you mind if we use this coaching session on our school counselors, not the students? And I said, oh, of course. I said, why? She said, we need it. We need some coaching, right? For us right now. And it was pretty telling the way she described the need and how scary it was for herself and some of the students out there.
No, and that's so important. That was where I wanted to go on next, because I read a comment online from an 11th grade student talked about one of your sessions having people be vulnerable and opening up. And one of the things, and I've been in education a long time, and too often, and unfortunately, when you say the word coach, it usually means something, you're not doing something, and we need to bring in a coach to help you. But and the way I've kind of addressed that as a principal and a district leader, as an advocate for coaching and an advocate for growth, is that look at any successful singer, musician, athlete, they all have coaches, right? Even the people at the top of their game. So how do you transition that when you work in school to be going to go back to being proactive, to have coaches being a support, not to fix something that's broken?
Yeah. It's a good end. And the second big thing out of these focus groups and talking to students and teachers and administrators early on was, as much as they all, and we all do, I like to look at my phone and look on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter and look at celebrities and see what they're talking or tweeting about. But interestingly enough, the students overwhelmingly said when it comes to real life examples, they want to hear from real life people, approachable, relatable. And I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins and Oprah and people in that world. But I'll tell you, no 14-year-old kid in this country cares, or who knows who Tony Robbins is, probably. And no offense to Tony, I love the guy.
No.
And I'd work with him if he gave me the shot. But
oh yeah, he's one of my, if you can have 5 people over for dinner, he's one of the 5 for sure.
I've been, listening to him for quite some time, and I listen to him quite often. But what I heard from those students is, I want to relate to this person. And so the way we went out and recruited coaches is, yes, you have to have some background, right? And be credible and go through the background checks and some of the administrative things, but you have to be able to communicate with kids. And that's not for everybody. Even some of the great speakers of all time, the TED Talks and the like, not all of them can deliver to a 6th grade audience. Actually,
no, it's a whole different world.
A lot of them cannot. So we went out and got people like Coach Naisha. There's another coach, John Averett, who's also a very popular coach. He's a former school counselor, former high school baseball coach, father of 4 boys, lives in Texas. His day job, he's a master resiliency training officer in Fort Hood. And he teaches our soldiers on resiliency. And he has this unbelievable way of bringing that to life for kids. Now, he's a father, he's a school counselor, he knows how to relate. But he has this unbelievable way to actually teach real life practical skills in the moment, because we don't know what you need to be resilient for. It could be a fight, an incident, a parent event, a loss. There could be, we can't predict that. We can give you the skill set early to be preventative. And those are the types of coaches that we want to bring onto our platform who actually relate to them. So yes, we want diversity, but we want the variety. We want old and young and, Ivy League and non-Ivy League, right? People from all walks of life to be able to, because the school in the Bronx versus downtown versus Austin versus in Mississippi, while yes, many students are facing the same challenges universally, in their communities, they're facing very unique challenges. And again, another reason I think we found a little bit of success is we're actually listening to our customer and understanding what in their community is happening. We might not have a coach for everybody. We're a young, high growth company in the moment, but we certainly are not going to force upon a solution that's not right for your school, right? It's this concept of not one size fits all. You have to think and be flexible to the school because they're all different.
No, absolutely. And I just want to throw a few things up before I ask you the last question, because there's so much here. There's so many things to dive into. We could talk for a half a day. Make sure to check out all the information on the Robin website, which is scrolling below. They have also, you talked about social media. Make sure to check out Robin on Twitter. Here's your Twitter account as well. They're also on Instagram. Check them out on Instagram. So many great ideas, so many great solutions, so many just possibilities to hear from the team, also on LinkedIn. So they're out there. And one of the things I wanted to share before I dive into the last question, and I started to jot it down after the first 2 times you said it. You said the word listen, and you said it 7 more times after that. And working in this environment, it's impressive to hear a solution provider talk about listening, because oftentimes we're told what we need in the schools or the teachers. So it's I just want to say it's refreshing to hear that, and that's probably one of the reasons you were awarded Soup Choice for SEL. So congratulations. I want to congratulate you on that award and winning that. Your team must have worked incredibly hard to get there. I had a chance to interview Doug, the CEO, who puts that on. So I know the process you had to go through. So I want to congratulate you for that and hearing all of these great things. Make sure to check out all the great work in the social media that I put up there and website. But I'm going to leave you with this, and I'd love to hear from you, because you have just such a rich background in this, both as a father and now as a CEO and working with people throughout the country. When I say, what does stronger together mean to you? What does it mean to you, Sonny?
Yeah. It means community. It means that we need each other, no matter what part of life you're in. In a family, I couldn't do this without my wife. I couldn't do this without my mom, right? With young kids, having grandma come over. It means we are stronger when we are together, right? As a company, yeah, I might be here and lucky enough to do this podcast, but it's the 9 other people that I just had a Zoom call with that created the content, that brought us into the school, that did all the things that we do. It is the heart to me, and the most important, what I saw, and I can only speak for myself, during COVID, we lost community, right? I moved around. I lost, some of my friends moved here, some moved there, some went to Florida, some went to California. I lost community, and I felt weaker. I felt weaker because I didn't have my ecosystem, my friends I can call and let's grab a coffee, or I have a problem. And now as we get back more to life and have that community again through schools, through my daughter's school, now all my friends are my kids' friends' parents, right? But now together we make that community, right? We make that bond, and we are allowed to do a ton of things. So to me, stronger together means being together and being with each other and being supportive. Not agreeing doesn't mean you agree with each other all the time. It means you're there for each other, starting at the core with family. So I love the concept you roll out, and I might pick your brain, and who knows, Dr. Joseph, you might be a coach on the Robin platform soon. If I can.
Hey, and that's how Power Connection started, with meeting people and having those conversations, and that led to, as we start to re-energize and come back together, how can we be stronger? And I can't thank you enough for all of the inspiration here today. I can't wait to even dive into more of it. And I hope you all do the same as viewers in this great story, in this great product to bring to your schools in your district to help those students. I've worked in districts that are 1,200 students, and I now work with a district that's 25,000 students, that we have to have these opportunities. So thank you so much for coming on, and for our viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. This is the first of many as we do work together, because I do believe that collaboration is the way to move forward, and really amplifying others' voices makes us better. And that's how I got here. That's how this idea was launched, and that's how the new book came out. So, Sonny, I'm thrilled to have you along this ride with me as the first guest, and we look forward to future things and maybe future collaborations.
Great. Thank you so much.